You know, the one thing that the other side loves to accuse us of is indoctrination. They like to say that we're the ones indoctrinating and grooming the children. But whenever I read a story like the one I'm about to read to you, I always say to myself, their type of lies and conspiracy theories and misinformation that they pump out into the world is exactly what creates these kind of stories. They'll throw all of their outrage at drag queens, but they can never bring up one story like I'm about to bring up when it comes to a drag queen. I'm going to go ahead and warn you up front, this is a pretty sad story, but I do believe we need to talk about it because we need to understand what gets into the minds of some of these unstable people that then ends up in a situation like this. So I'm going to read you this article here. We're going to bring this one up. This is from CBS News. Police canine and suspect killed. Deputy wounded during a standoff in Maine and a baby rescued. A police canine was killed and an officer was wounded during an armed standoff in Maine, officials said Tuesday. The suspect was also killed. The standoff began on Monday night. Maine State Police and the county sheriff's office responded to a domestic violence report at a home in Portage Lake, Maine. The dispute between a woman who has not been identified and 29-year-old Stephen Regini. The woman told police that Regini had been fighting with her and pushed her into a wall. When police arrived, the woman was outside and Regini was indoors with the couple's 4-week-old infant. Officers attempted to take Regini into custody, but he resisted. He then pulled a gun from his waistband and shot at the officers as he ran back into his home. One officer, Deputy Shane Campbell, was shot in the shoulder. Regini then grabbed another firearm and fired at police cruisers, and they tried to back out of the driveway. Another police officer, identified as Deputy Reed Clark, shot at Regini. Police then spent several hours trying to negotiate with him. He refused to surrender and eventually tried to flee the scene in a vehicle. The vehicle was disabled by police. Regini then ran away from the scene. The canine, who police said was a 4-year-old Belgian, I can't pronounce that last word, named Preacher, was then deployed to apprehend Regini. Regini fired at the dog, who was struck in the abdomen. And there is Preacher. This truly is a sad story. So Regini then pointed his gun at troopers before he was shot by 2 other officers, identified as troopers Andrew Hardy and Jonathan Russell. Russell was Preacher's handler, the Maine police said. Regini was pronounced dead at the scene. The infant child was returned to the mother safely. Campbell, the officer shot in the shoulder, was transported and treated at an area hospital. Preacher was rushed to an emergency veterinary clinic where he was stabilized for several hours before he succumbed to his injuries. So the canine Preacher was more than just a working dog. He was a dedicated partner, a protector, and a hero, said William Ross. Most people will never understand the sacrifices made by our canine teams, but last night Preacher made the ultimate sacrifice to protect others from harm. So this story, like I said, it's truly sad, and I want to show you here a post that this guy made on Twitter. And I want you to take a look at the community note on this. This is truly sad. But look here, he says, years of transgenders harassing me and abortion being essentially a sacrament in my state, I have to stand my ground and fight for my religion here. Christ is Lord, I'm sorry. Readers added context. The user posted this during a standoff with police where he held his 4-week-old daughter hostage. He was later killed by police and wounded by a deputy and killing a canine unit. The child was unharmed. And folks, I'm going to go ahead and play you a clip of what he said during this standoff. And again, this type of rhetoric that they love to set and push out there creates these type of situations. Take a look.
I'm here. My name is Stephen Regini. I am a resident of Maine, and I had the cops called on me. A SWAT team showed up, and I'm now engaged in a shootout. My state has been the #1 abortion and gay rights state in the entire country, and I've been segregated against for my beliefs. Now they're trying to arrest me simply because I do not believe in gay rights and abortion, which is the #1 state of Maine right now. That's what they do. They're an abortion mill. So I'm here. I'm in a shootout with the authorities. who are protecting the rights of doctors to murder babies, and they are protecting the rights of children to be ripped out of the womb and killed.
It's truly sad to see someone end up in a place like that. And, I got to be honest with you, I can't help but sometimes wonder where I may have ended up in this world had I not had a reasonable mom and dad, reasonable grandparents and uncles who helped to steer me away from a lot of the propaganda and bullshit that was spread in the world. It makes me worry about the next generation that comes up and all the information they're going to consume, especially with someone like Elon Musk, who has a hold of the megaphone and is just shouting so much of this rhetoric out into the world. It's truly sad to see someone end up in a situation like that and believing that that's what they were fighting for. That's the thing. He genuinely, I'm sure in his heart of hearts, he genuinely believed that those were the things that he was fighting for. When in reality, there's no Democrat. I've never met a Democrat who said, oh, yes, I'm absolutely 100% for abortion. I love that idea. I've never met one yet that said it. What we have tried to say is that is a woman's right. Her decisions that she makes with her doctors should be hers and hers alone. There should not be another person involved in it except for her and her doctor. No man, no politician, no minister, no one else. Even when they try to make the argument of, well, we'll just kick it back to the states and let the states decide. We know that's BS, because then they try to come in on top of the states and tell the states what they can and can't do. It doesn't matter if you turned it down to the state or turned it down to the town or turned it down to the household. It makes no difference. The decision should simply be the woman's. It's not about killing babies, but that's the way that it has been presented to these people for so long, and they've painted us as that. So that's why that you have people, if you're on our side of the aisle, you'll have people come at you with absolute rage, because they have been fed this propaganda that those are the things that we're for. I've never met a Democrat yet that was for abortion, and I've never met a Democrat out there who was for going around and rounding up people's guns. But those are talking points that they push and push and push, and people like that buys it. And then they decide to play vigilante. Then they decide to get in these, they create their own prison, really, at the end of the day, and end up fighting a battle that wasn't theirs to fight to begin with. That guy could have raised his daughter, lived his life, and he could have let other people do the same. To me, it's that simple. We can all go through this world, and people can have their differences of opinion, and they can live whatever lifestyle that they were born to live. Notice I didn't say choose, because I don't really believe that. We're all in this world trying to get through it, and I don't want to see the government involved in other people's lives. And there are a lot of people right now that thinks that we're in the middle of the second American Revolution and that Elon is dismantling everything. And actually, what he's really doing is giving more and more power to him and Donald Trump. And we're going to be living in a country that we won't recognize if something doesn't change really soon. And people like that will be made out to be heroes, I'm sure, over on X and places like that. But I really believe that it's MAGA's rhetoric that creates those kind of people. And it's truly sad that they don't understand that, that wasn't your battle to fight. That really wasn't it. You could have lived the rest of your life in Maine, raised your family, lived and let lived, and could have been a much happier ending. It's truly sad that that's where the young man ended up. But we have got to be louder with our ideas and our principles, let people know what we really stand for, because for so long, the right has built this straw man of us. They've just built it up. And they tear it down every day. And people like that goes along with it and rolls with it, and then ends up losing their life for it. How many times do we read the manifestos of these people? And what did they do? They bought into that propaganda. So we got to get louder than the propaganda. We got to get above it, and we got to get ahead of it. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy trying to put toothpaste back in a tube. But we've got to stand on the side of sanity. And we've got to stand on the side of the truth. Regardless of who it may offend or how many friends we may lose over it. I don't really, to me, I'm not worried anymore about losing friends over things like this, because to me, it's not about politics. I've always said, it's not about, I'm not going to lose a friend if we disagree over the minimum wage. I'm not going to lose a friend if we disagree over how much the rich should be taxed or who should pay for the highway that's coming through. I'm not going to lose friends over that. But when people comes out with their hatred and their bigotry so loud, I'm not going to agree to disagree with them on that. And when they buy into conspiracy theories like that and then suddenly think that I'm the enemy from within, yeah, they're not going to be my friends, because it's impossible to get through to people like that. But what we got to do is we got to keep talking to the people who are still, and I don't know how it happens, but it does. There's still people out there that are sitting on the fence trying to figure out which direction to go in. And what I would like to say is, people over here on our side, you can call it the left or the middle or whatever the hell you want to call it, we're just reasonable people who doesn't want to see people lose their life in senseless incidents like that. We want to see people live and let live. We want to see women have control over their own bodies. We want to see gay and trans people live, their lives. We want to see marginalized communities lifted up, and we want to see people not get handouts, but just get a fair hand to play in this world. To me, it's that simple. And we've been demonized and vilified so long that a guy like that decided that, we were the enemy, and he ended up losing his life over it. And it's truly sad. And, it's, how do you even end on a note like this? You know what I mean? Honestly, I've been sitting there the last 30 seconds going, how do you wrap this one up? Because it's just such a sad situation. But all we can do is keep putting in the work and moving forward. And if we do, maybe one day stories like this will be fewer and farther between.